had to get a sip of water. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Furbaby Summit. We have our next speaker with us this afternoon. Annette Whittenberger is joining us. Hi, Annette. Thank you for being with us.
Hi.
I will say, so Annette is a military spouse of 24 years. She has a 21-year-old daughter, Haeli, and son, Blaze. Am I muted? No, I'm not. Sorry. I have a chief button pusher for a reason. It's not me. So Annette is a retired combat veteran who was in the Army for 17 years and 4 months as a chemical officer, including a deployment to Iraq and Afghanistan. So she retired in November of 2016 and fell into being an accidental entrepreneur. So she uses her voice to share her stories about real life after the Army and living with mental illness. Since her retirement, she's focused on her business, her podcast, her speaking, mentoring, volunteering, and has written a book, The Wall Between Two Lives. Her blog is also called A Wild Ride Called Life, and that incorporates stories from post-military life, where she shares how she lives life being as a mom and a military spouse with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. Along with the writing, she's created a safe space where she hosts a podcast titled The Truths We Hide. Not only does she share her story, but she also has guests who come on to share theirs by offering advice to them to help them know that they are not alone and to provide hope. Annette has a huge heart for volunteering, and she does so by being a mentor for veterans on Veterati and for military spouses on eMentor and Amplify and NASDAQ Mentor Circle Makers. She's also been involved as a mentor for TAPS, which is Tragedy Assistance Program for Children Survivors, the Association for Military Spouse Entrepreneurs, and the Women Veterans Network. She continues her work as a mentor, a consultant, a public speaker, an author, a podcaster, and sharing resources from nonprofits who are like-minded and like-hearted when it comes to mental health. So if you hadn't guessed, we are going to be talking a lot today about Annette's stories and how a lot of how those play into mental health issues that we have and how to work with that and how to feel better and feel more in control. Annette, thank you again for coming on. I am going to turn that over to you.
Thank you so much. It's sometimes you forget what you do until someone reads it and you're like,
it's
oh my
awesome.
God,
it really is awesome. And I try not to read all that often, but it's so cool. I'm like, I've got to read that because I don't want to leave something out. So
I appreciate it.
Thank you for being with us here today.
No, thank you so much. It's really an honor. I love this. Oh.
So let's see, where did your slide go?
Oh, I have it. Do you have to share the screen with me?
I think.
Oh, wait, or do I have to share the screen?
Did you share the screen?
She's got to share. She can share.
You can share.
I got
you can
it.
Share.
Okay. Can you see it?
I can see.
So I have a couple of slides just because this is a Furbaby Summit and I have a lot of them. So this first slide really just sums up just a part of my life, really. Like as you had mentioned, I retired almost 6 years ago from the Army. I have been through a lot of challenges in my life to an extent to where, how do I put this? When we go through stuff, we just want it to end, right? We just want the pain to end. We just want the suffering to end. And I, as a young child going through several different things in my life, I didn't know how to handle it because growing up in the 80s, we didn't really talk about stuff like that. And you just learn how to suppress it. So I became a master at that throughout my life, just suppressing all these feelings because I didn't know how to talk about it. You kept it in the home. I think no matter what nationality you are, you don't put your business out there, but especially with us, I'm a Peruvian, so Hispanics, you definitely don't put it out there. Mm-hmm. And so I just kept it all in, but we always had dogs, we always had pets. All my life I had a pet, and I forgot how impactful that the pets are in my life. And I never realized that until decades later. but I'm just showing you some pictures of my pets that I've had. The most recent one is the top right, Lulu. When I retired, I went into a deep, dark depression, and I was really close with my boss and really a lot of my soldiers that I worked with when I was stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana. And so he knew that I loved his dogs. His dogs just had puppies, and Lulu was one of them. And I was just like, I don't even have the words, but my husband said, no, we have 3 dogs. And I was like, but you don't understand. And so she really saved me.
Mhm.
It was to a point where I was training her as a service dog, and she just she's too feisty to become one. She has a personality, and she will tell you how it is. So if dogs could talk, she would tell you that we're not the boss of her. So that did not work. That did not work out with her. But what was scary, and I'll never forget it, is the top picture of that car. I was actually taking my daughter to college in August of 2018, and we were in a car accident. And I was supposed to bring Lulu with us.
Oh.
But at the last minute, my daughter said, you should probably just keep her at home because we're going to have to move a lot. We're driving a lot. It's just going to be a lot of, she's probably just going to be in the way too much. And I said, yeah, you know what? You're right. So thank God she did not come with us on that trip, because I was in the hospital for 5 weeks, my daughter for 4 days. I got the brunt of the injuries, thank God, because I would never want her to have gone through what I went through. But it was at that moment that I finally realized God gave me 1,000,001 chances to finally wake up and realize that I had a purpose, even though I didn't think I did. That was the time. That was the time. And while I was in the hospital, I was angry and mad, and I wanted to blame the other guy. And I had just so many mixed emotions. But as I was in recovery, I had to be reminded, and I knew, but sometimes when you're depressed and you're in that dark space, that doesn't matter what people tell you, or it doesn't matter what you see. It is just a fog. So I was reminded a lot that I was alive, and what was I going to do with my life now? So I was humbled. For 5 weeks, I was humbled a lot, and in recovery afterwards. But my pets just, they were there, and every time I looked at them, they just knew what was, they can sense things, and I really believe it. And it's funny because in our house, I often tease my son. I know she's talking to us. She's saying something. His mom, they don't talk. I was like, yes, they do. Yes, they do. And so
they do.
I firmly believe that they just can sense what you're feeling. And anytime I was upset, I was crying, I was depressed. Each one of these little dogs over here, they came to our rescue. So that's, just like we talked about, who saved who rescued who. Most of my dogs are rescues. The one in the middle, the fluffy one, she doesn't look like that now, but Teddy, we found her under a car in El Paso. We were stationed there. And my husband said, no. And I said, give me 10 days to find her owner. We never did. We had her chipped and named. So we kept her. The top one next to Lulu, Harley, we saved her from a rescue. Not a rescue. What did, a shelter. Yeah, a shelter. Somehow we always just ended up with another dog. So Harley, she unfortunately passed away in June of last year. She was 15 years old. And so for a lab to have lived that long, that was hard for me though, because I kept finding reasons why she needed to come with me to Texas, because we moved to Texas now. And my husband said, it's not fair. She's in pain. And I said, but she will be better in Texas. And so it was hard. The bottom picture, Dakota, she came with her sister Riley. We had some kids and their parents walk in the neighborhood, and they said, do you want one of these dogs? And my father-in-law said, take both of them. And so we took both of them. And so it was always, always some kind of cycle of just taking in dogs, because how could you not? I don't know. If I could have a plot of land and a bigger house, I would take as many dogs as possible.
You are speaking our language. You are not alone in that respect. If I had $1 for every time our friend said, let's just get a plot of land out in the country and we'll plumb it and we'll have, we'll fence it and we'll just have a compound and we'll have just all of that,
right? So how can you not? So
yes.
let me go to the next slide and tell you my problem now. So my daughter went away to college. She ended up going after recovery. She ended up rescuing 2 dogs, and one of them had puppies 5 weeks ago, right here in our house.
Oh my goodness, that is precious.
So I have the mama right there in the top left and all the 4 puppies in her hand, living here until they are ready for adoption. But so I go into this story because I used to be in a place where I took things for granted. I never really, I never realized what I had. And so as I decided to be an entrepreneur by accident, like you had stated, because I never thought that I could do something with my speaking about mental health. I had people tell me, you'll never be able to make this. You'll never be able to do anything with the blog. There's a million blogs out there. And so I in my mind, I said, well, watch me. Mm-hmm. And so I stayed at home. My son, I got to see my daughter her last year of high school. I got to be home with her and then with my son. And now we're here in Texas and he's going to college. And so I get to stay at home. And it's by choice. I decided that I didn't want to go back into the workplace because I wanted to focus on helping other people. And so now that I'm here and I decided, I don't know how, I guess I just became an entrepreneur and a serial entrepreneur because I do so many different things that I want to make sure I make impact all over the world. I always, my friends tease me because I say, I just want to save the world. And so I'm going to try and do that. So I get to stay here and I get to raise these puppies because she can't have them in her apartment. And every day they remind me, as tired as I am, as frustrated as I get, they remind me to just enjoy the little things. So I get to take them outside and I get to watch them grow. I get to watch them walk and I get to watch them eat their first, little kibble and just all these little things that I didn't do. I wouldn't be doing because I'd be here behind my desk for 8 hours a day. And so they remind me to go outside and just appreciate the little things. And so even at 3:30 in the morning when they're crying and they're hungry, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get up, I take them outside and they make me laugh because of the little things that they do. So they've changed me, even in the short 5 weeks. And it's just the little things that I think we forget. We can get annoyed with picking up their poop and cleaning up those those pet pads. We go through a million of them and trying to, potty train them. I'm like, what did I get myself into? I'm exhausted, but they're so cute. They're so cute. And so, I'm taking that all in because we didn't even know that her puppy was pregnant and we delivered them. And it's just those little things that it's a blessing, really, that we get to appreciate that little life, all the 4 little munchkins, those lives. And I try to incorporate that into my daily affirmation, just to be grateful, just try not to let the little things get you so pissed off. Just, it's so easy to do because the way I handled my mental health was anger, rage, because I didn't know what was going on and I didn't know how to talk about it. When you're in the military, that's the last thing you want to do is to admit that there's something wrong, or I didn't even know anything was wrong, or just say, or try to dig deep into it. There was no way anyone was going to dig deep into my soul. I could handle it. I've got this under control. I'm a soldier, I'm a leader, and I'm a female. So there was no way. But that only lasted so long. And so that's why now I'm so adamant about sharing my story because I know I'm not the only one dealing with it. And I hid it for so long. And so even with the people who are, the negative comments or the questions of why are you posting that all over social media? Because unfortunately, that's people go to social media to try to get clarity or confirmation that their feelings are valid. That's just how it is. So you have to go where the people are. And that, that's just what I do. I will share as much as possible with also keeping or respecting my family. There's certain things that I won't talk about because we have to draw a line somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's out there, and we forget to appreciate our dogs and what they can do for us. We forget to appreciate going outside, because I would sit in the house for days and not leave. And it's just, but it's sometimes we have to remember that it's okay to not be okay. We always say that cliche, but it's so true.
It is true.
So true. We forget that. And we have to be reminded, or we have to remind ourselves and talk about it. And just, it's frustrating. It's hard. And I know it. COVID didn't help. And, now it's unfortunate, because now we have actresses coming out and talking about their mental health, and people will listen to that, but they won't listen to themselves. It's like, why do we have to have someone famous say I'm struggling? So it's hard all the way around, but I think we just need to continue the conversation in any capacity that we can. And so we just need to keep going, because together, I know this sounds so cheesy, together we're stronger, but it's true.
We are stronger together.
But it's true.
That was something that we were speaking about earlier this morning. And part of it goes into grief counseling, not just from, how do I say that? During the pandemic, during COVID, with the lockdowns especially, and people being at home and taking away that buffer zone of work, and seeing friends and seeing family, or seeing whoever lit you up for the day, that made you happy, lit you up. The ASPCA came out with a huge number of increase in adoptions. And what was interesting was when COVID started to sort of recede and people were getting back out and started going back to work, like we all noticed our vets were really booked. And I'd noticed that too. Our vets were really booked. And they said, well, we put protocols into place for everybody, but also a lot of other people have adopted more pets. And so the title "Who Rescued Who," I see ties to that in so many different groups and friends of mine, and rescue groups and support groups, where there are more support groups now, but they're experiencing those things when they get their pets, and they're like, oh my gosh, I have more joy than I've had in I don't know how long. And so however that works, it starts helping them, face some of those issues and find stronger or different or better, however it works for them, ways to address it and cope through it and come out stronger, even if it's ways to deal with anxiety to tamp some of that back down. But they've gotten on the backside with grief, and as their fur babies have passed on or something's happened, they're going to social media and talking about this, and they're going to these other groups and talking about what's happened and how they feel. And we had Lap of Love on earlier, and they have a whole series about grief support and management, which is something that is huge for me, because I've been through that. And I know a lot of other people have been through that. And that was something that I wanted to focus on and talk about for the summit too, is to be able to let other fur baby parents know, like, you're not alone with your anxiety or depression or things that are happening. You're not alone in that. And you're not alone in grief when you've lost one of your littles. And, there's more people out there, I think, to share the happiness and the joys of seeing those little bodies running around and getting to raise them, because it's, like you said, it's just phenomenal to get to do that. It's a gift, but it's also good to have it on the backside. So I think the more people that talk about it out there, the better it is for everybody. So together we are stronger. It's not something that just needs to be relegated to, a dark hole in the back of our mind, if that makes sense. We have a question of from the chat box, like, what has been the biggest surprise from sharing your story? Or if you've got one that was a big surprise.
When I first started sharing my story, I created my website. I started getting anonymous messages through there, and even through my Instagram, from people who thanked me for sharing it.
Yeah.
And that, they read my post daily, although they don't comment, they're always watching.
Mhm.
And so that really touched me. The very first time I received that, I cried, because it was just like, oh my gosh, somebody, you just don't know who who you impact. And I think same goes for me too. When I read someone else's post, they don't even know what they just
Yeah.
said. So it goes both ways. But that was the biggest surprise. I really was touched, and I knew then that I needed to keep going.
Well, I'm glad you're keeping going then. That's a good thing.
Thank
And you
you.
really don't know who sees it. You
Mm-mm.
really don't know. We have no idea sometimes. And I know there's a lot of people out there that they'll read things that we post and they don't say a word. But
Yeah.
maybe 6 months later you get a message of, hey, you said something months ago, and it just really it resonated with me, and it really helped with this and this. So thank you. And they're like, oh my God, that's awesome. That's really
Yeah.
wonderful. What tools would you recommend for others that may be struggling with depression?
I think the biggest thing that I've done lately is to give myself grace. We are our worst critics, and we're hard on ourselves, thinking that you have to do all these things every single day. I've just learned to do, if I can accomplish at least 1 to 2 things a day, then you know what? I succeeded. I cannot be so hard on myself, because I will get depressed. I will be so upset because I couldn't do it, or I didn't show up today, or I didn't do all the things that I thought I was going to do, or I compare myself with other people. The imposter syndrome thing, that really gets me down.
Yeah.
So I have to keep focusing on the fact that I'm still here. I'm on a certain journey. We are all on our different journeys, and God has a plan for every one of us. Now, for those who don't believe in God, that's completely fine. I think we still need to go back and give ourselves a grace to just wake up, get up, and just do whatever it is that you want to do that day. It doesn't have to be anything significant. It could be something small, but I think we need to go back and just look at that, because I never really thought of it before. I just went through the motions every day.
That was a crazy way to have a wake-up call to it, but it's been powerful for you.
It is. I don't want anyone to go through something like that, but
No.
just really look back. I mean, we're losing people all the time, unfortunately, and so what can we do to, I've heard this a few years ago, make your mess is your message. How can we create what we're doing, what we have gone through, into something positive? Because the things that we've gone through has happened to us. No, it has happened for us and not to us.
Yes.
And so there's always just like we say, there's a method to our madness. There's a method to his madness too. He's putting you through that for some crazy reason, but we will see it if we just open up our eyes.
We have a question. Does the military offer support, or what kind of support is there offered once you retire or if you leave?
So that's touchy and has been controversial because we do have the VA, but it hasn't always been user friendly, unfortunately. But what we didn't have years ago and what we have now, there's a lot of nonprofits that are helping our veterans. They are offering resources for therapy. They're offering resources to, for example, one that I know of, Warriors Next Adventure, they take you outside and then you go on camping trips or whatever, other ways to cope with your struggles. So even if you don't want to talk to somebody in person, there's other ways. And so that's what I am learning of. And that's what I recommend to people is there's so many nonprofits now. We didn't have that. So. unfortunately, that's the best answer I could give right now because the VA has been it's been difficult.
I've heard that a lot.
So I
Oh.
yeah. Yeah.
Have you let me see, there was another, I thought I had a question in the chat line that I might have missed. Oh, okay. Are you working more with rescue groups for the military since you've moved to Texas?
I am trying to get involved more. Yes,
Okay.
I am. I've only been back in Texas since July. So there are, but the nonprofits that I work with are located all over. So it's not strictly to Texas. It's all over the place.
That was something we ran into as well. We're central.
Yeah.
But they're in California, they're in Virginia, they're in Florida, they're all over the place.
which I think is
so,
and that's it. I think it's great though, because we're always going to have people that are, I mean, our life has moved to virtual, so if we can get somebody, even if we could do a Zoom therapy session, it's better than not having anything at all. So if we can help people across the globe, then, let's just continue to do it. And then we'll, and still try to make impact in Texas.
I think that's, did he get one? Oh, I was going to say, I think that's a great idea too. So Annette, how much of a mind block did you have, or if you had one, when you were launching your podcast?
Oh, a mind block. So I started my podcast twice. I started a podcast in 2017 and I did 4 episodes and I couldn't do it. It was just it was hard for me to speak about my struggle. And then I started again in 2019 and then I just went for it. And the thing I don't focus just on me. The podcast is with not just military affiliated, it's with everybody. Because unfortunately, I keep saying unfortunately, it's not unfortunate. It's we have, in the military, we think it's just us, we forget that it's our neighbor or the person at the coffee shop that's struggling. And so that's what I try to do, is I try to bring everybody and anyone on that wants to share their story. It's hard sometimes because we don't know if it's too sensitive or it's too hard, but that's what I wanted to do, is create a safe space for people to just come on and just use their voice. Because like you said, you don't know who's watching, listening, reading, whatever the case is. You're going to impact at least one person. So I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. It does. I mean, I can tell you, if with my podcast, the first iteration of it was in 2018, and I took I did some episodes and I took a rather long hiatus from it when I had some of mine that fell really sick. And so I have so many notes and had so many topic ideas and things that I wanted to talk about and stories to tell, but I wasn't able to really get out of it and get back into telling those stories and putting it together until pretty recently. So it's you have those things. You're not alone in that. Not at all. What is the best way for our audience to follow you or connect with you with your podcast and your message?
You can get everything's on my website right now at wildridecalledlife.com. And so yeah.
Wild Ride Called. Thank you, Chief Button Pusher to the rescue. It takes a village.
It does.
It comes from down there. I'm very appreciative. Thank you. A wildridecalledlife.com. Got it.
Yes.
And when do you have a schedule for your podcast for new episodes that come out, or?
I do. I try to do it every Friday. I do live ones now. I used to do pre-recorded, but since it's just me, I do live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to check you out on Fridays then.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on today. it's Friday. So yeah.
I know. I forgot what day it was. No. No, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for what you're doing, because we need more. We need more. We need to keep spreading the message.
We do. And again, I think this is so valuable for people that are, because we have everyone from all walks of life.
Yeah.
And we have a common denominator of, stress, and we have a lot of things that we deal with mental issues. And it's better to get out there and talk about it than to put it under, a rock and just try to keep pushing through it. It's better to have help in that. And there's just so many different options and ways out there now. So I'm a big proponent for talking about it and getting it out in the light.
Yes.
So thank you for doing that, and thank you for putting your message out there and sharing that, because it's a hard story, but it's sometimes it's one of those things. It's life or death that wakes you up. You're going, oh, I have a purpose. I'm not ready yet. I want to go and do this to help other people. So
yeah, no, thank you so much. I hope to meet you guys in person. We're only an hour away, so
you will. I know. When I realized that, I was thinking, oh, that's just a 30-minute drive. That's nothing.
I know.
or maybe a little more, but I'm an optimist. So. Well, Annette, I will close our session for now. Thank you again for coming to hang out with us today and for helping. And we will talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.